And certainly if one can be a heathen and become a believer, one who hates Jews can come to understand and correct oneself and come to appreciate Jews and may even become a Jew themselves. Consequently, this statement that innate hatred that the people have against Judaism is garbage, stupidity, unscientific nonsense. Zionism is a political philosophy. According to Mr. Herzl, the Jews were oppressed everywhere, and they needed a state, a country, which would save them and give them the right to protect themselves. Thus he called, look at the stupidity. He says that everybody in the world is against Jews. They hate Jews, and now he wants to collect them in one spot where we can all come and get them. Clear stupidity, every aspect of it. Here, Mr. Herzl comes to tell us that not only are we innately against Jews and that we will never change, but the only way Jews themselves will protect themselves is when they come to have their own country. We said Mr. Herzl began in 1897. That great man, V.I. Lenin, at the turn of the century, wrote a book entitled Imperialism, the highest stage of capitalism. Is it? Imperialism, the highest stage of capitalism? Yes. If one would read this little pamphlet, one would see here that Mr. Lenin had precisely pointed out that all of the world had already been conquered and divided by colonial powers. There was no else in the world left to be conquered or divided by colonial powers. This is the time when Zionism comes to rise. Zionism comes to look for a state when everywhere else in the world is already dominated. Thus, in order for Mr. Herzl to get a country for Zionists, what he did was to attach himself to imperialism, British imperialism in this case, quite specifically. Of course, as an African who suffered under the heels of British imperialism, I can have no love for it, and certainly I cannot love anyone who attaches themselves to it and attaches themselves to it for the foundation of a state and then call this a liberation movement. Liberation movements fight against imperialism, not with it. Clearly here. The legal foundation of the State of Israel is what is known as the Balfour Declaration. This declaration was issued in 1917. A man in the government of Britain named Balfour wrote a paper and promised the Jews a national home. The national home he promised them was an area which Britain was colonizing, Palestine. Palestine didn't belong to the British, just like Ireland doesn't belong to the British, even though they have troops there. But here, these British imperialists signed a note and gave it to the Jews and they accepted it. Where is the morality for this? If you say that Israel belongs to you, then you don't go to a thief to get Israel, you go and take it. Once you go to an immoral being such as British imperialism, and this is the basis for you getting the land, then clearly here those who are truly liberation fighters must question this. The basis, we say, is the Balfour Declaration, and Zionists know it. Thus, Zionism is certainly not a liberation movement because it never fought against any imperialism. As a matter of fact, today, Zionism is the baby, child, and infant protector of imperialism in the Middle East. It carries out the interests of American imperialism. As a matter of fact, Zionism and American imperialism is like this. If our tax dollars would stop giving money to Israel, the state would sink tomorrow. And certainly no one can deny that American imperialism is the leading imperialist nation in the world. So we cannot see how a liberation movement is so tied, string, and ham to American imperialism. They work hand in hand with American imperialism. Thus they can hardly be a liberation movement. In addition to this, Zionism has nothing to do with anything religion, nothing. All religions are concerned with human beings after they die. That's what religions are for. Islam will tell you what happens to you when you die. As a matter of fact, this which forces you to live a good life so that after death you'll be able to enjoy the rewards of heaven. The same is true for Judaism. But Zionism says nothing about the individual after they're dead. They don't give a damn about you. Thus, Zionism has nothing to do with religion at all. And one should not make the confusion here. The Palestinian state belongs to the Palestinian people. This is a fact. Of course, Zionism in the early days made all sorts of nonsensical propaganda. Oh, they ran away, they left the land. I saw one, he said, well, you know, they ran away and left the land. I said, well, they want to come back now? So just get out the way and let them come back. If you said they just ran away on their own. No. Zionism took Palestine through raw and naked terrorism. Naked. Even that butcher, Begin, he will never rest in peace. He who came into a village and terrorized the village to scare the people to run out and was proud of it. This is how Zionism conquered the land. They didn't conquer it not even with the Torah. They conquered it with the gun passed to them from American imperialism, British imperialism. All the imperialist countries in the world supported them. The Palestinian people have been totally driven out of their land. And Zionism comes to use as a justification for the state religion. There's no state in the world that can claim it's a state because of religion. That's not possible. Zionism cannot say that Jews belong to any one race. They cannot, because we know that Judaism came out of Africa, and the earliest Jews in the world were Africans. Even today, they must admit that those in Ethiopia are Jews, and therefore should come to Israel. So once you admit this, you admit that, oh, Judaism then is not, this question of Zionism is not a question of race, but what they say is a nation, of course. But a religion is not a nationality, nor is a religion a nation. Religion transcends, that's the correct word. Religion transcends the boundaries, national boundaries. We know that Islam, for example, began in Saudi Arabia. But you will find Frenchmen born in France who adhere to Islam and are true Muslims. It transcends geographical boundaries. We know that Africa stabilized Christianity for the world. But everywhere in the world today you will find Christians. Religions transcends geographical boundaries. Consequently, Zionism must come to understand that it cannot claim or have anything to do with religion if it doesn't seek to transcend geographical boundaries. And it does not. As a matter of fact, it makes itself boundaries. Of course, these boundaries are not declared. Israel is the only state in the world with undeclared boundaries. Every other state has them except Israel. Zionism itself shows itself in the flux that it is. Even though in the Zionists want to brag about the intellectual superiority that they have, even today, they haven't decided in Israel who is a Jew. Yet they've taken the land for Jews, and they haven't yet decided who is a Jew. Of course, the relationship of Zionism and Judaism and Jews must be properly understood. Zionism dominates all Jewish organizations throughout the world. They were able to do this during World War II. Now, you must understand something about the Judaic religion. This question of the chosen people must be properly understood. Of course, God can never choose any of his children over any of his children, that's clear. Because while governments may discriminate, God cannot. But one can be chosen by God if one chooses God. And so once you choose God, you become God's chosen, and you choose God to do God's work. And of course, if you will look through all religions, the majority of them, they all have a theme running through them which say that in order to be redeemed, one must suffer. And Judaism takes seriously this axiom of religions. The theory of Judaism is that the Jews must suffer for humanity, for the cause of humanity, and their suffering will redeem not only them, but all of humanity. Certainly, this attitude in life must be saluted by every serious man and woman. This attitude towards the willingness to suffer for all of humanity for that it be redeemed must be appreciated by all revolutionaries. Thus, when we speak of chosen people, we must understand precisely the context in which it is done, in which it is said. So that means that not only are Jews chosen people, but a Muslim who truly chooses God, a Christian who truly chooses God, anyone who truly chooses God is God's chosen people. We said the basis for it, any other way will make it appear as if indeed it is a discriminating God, and no one can believe that God discriminates. God must be a God of justice. The Torah tells us this everywhere. Zionism then has absolutely nothing to do with Judaism. It seeks to confuse the people. Of course, this is the job of all political philosophies, all backward political philosophies. They seek to dominate religions and to use religions as a tool in their exploitation. Imperialism was able to do it so well with Christianity that Christianity hunted slaves for imperialism. But in no way does this mean that we attack Christianity. No! When we judge a system, we judge it by its principles, not by its adherents. Were we to judge any system by its adherents, all of them will have to be destroyed because human beings are weak in relationship to their fidelity to principles.